Hello everyone, welcome to the Sweeney Show, Business and Law podcast. Joining me here today is Solicitor and Minister for Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht, Josepha Madigan. Minister, you're very welcome.
Thank you, David.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure you're extremely busy at the moment with everything that's going on in government buildings.
Very busy. Actually, today and yesterday the Dáil has been sitting, and this is the first 2 days that I didn't have to go in because of the social restriction in the Dáil, because I've been in every other time that the Dáil has been sitting. But we do have a cabinet meeting tomorrow, and in fact I've literally gone from conference call to conference call, so I literally managed to eat something before speaking to you on this. But no, all's going well. It's a tough time for people, and we're very aware of that, and we're working very hard to try to make sure that we do everything we can to support people.
Yeah, I'd like to, get into your own legal career, because I know you're a qualified solicitor and you've worked in general practice and you're a very well-respected family law lawyer and practitioner back in the day before you went to politics. But I suppose the government at the moment, there's two things kind of happening, isn't it? The COVID pandemic, but also there's a formation of a possible new government.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't pick, to a certain extent, the perfect storm. We thought Brexit was a difficult thing to deal with, and it is, and obviously it hasn't gone away. In fact, we could be coming to a very critical time in the summer. But notwithstanding that, nobody expected COVID-19, and literally just after an election, when the arithmetic of the Dáil didn't turn up any definitive, quorum, if you like, to form a majority government. So, yeah, those talks are ongoing. In fact, the formal discussions with the Greens have been a full start today. And we obviously are dealing with COVID-19 on a sectoral basis and also across government as well.
So there's lots going on.
A lot going on, yeah.
Can I just take you back to your legal career and your training? So you went to Trinity College, I believe. Was law an undergraduate, or did you do a different undergraduate?
No, I left Mount Anvil School here quite near where I live, and languages were actually my first love. So I did French and German in Trinity, and I took a year out and went to Vienna in Austria. Absolutely loved that undergraduate degree. And both of my parents were lawyers. My mum is still alive and she's a barrister. My dad was a well-known solicitor. And I think there was a certain part of me that was rebelling against following their footsteps. And also my older brother was going into law too. But in any event, I decided then to do actually what I did do is I did a summer with my dad, and I got a taste for it and decided then to do the entrance exams, and that's how I ended up being a solicitor. Qualified in 1997.
Okay.
And I think the last time I was in the office was in 2017, so I was there for 20 years.
Yeah. And then did you do your training in the family practice?
Yeah, I did my training in the family practice, but myself and my brother set up Madigan Solicitors in the year 2000, so I was only qualified 3 years.
Sure.
Which, when I look back on it now, was very brave, but sometimes ignorance is the best way to go ahead. And, we wanted to forge our own path away from that, of our fathers. And, it was great. I kind of fell into the area of family law predominantly, and litigation as well. And my brother is more, it's his firm now, it's not my firm, but he practices mainly in commercial and probate and conveyancing and that kind of thing.
And when you set up the firm, because I've spoken to a lot of solicitors who have their own practices, did you notice that you had to become, there was a differentiation between the business person and the solicitor?
Yeah, I mean, the practice of law and the business of law are two radically different things. And I think, a lot of solicitors, when they're starting up, they don't realise that. I think it's just all about the practice of law. In fact, the business of law might take up more of your time, I would suggest, in terms of your accounts, in terms of law society regulation, in terms of employees and, HR issues and overheads and all of these things that, that any self-employed solicitor knows. And at the end of the day, and it's one thing that I brought into government with me as a TD is that I have the utmost respect for people that are self-employed because, they don't rely on the state in any way, and they're providing employment, and, they're only as good as their last month effectively. So, we were always, it does keep you thirsty, I think, as a self-employed solicitor, because you have to bring in the work in order to get paid and to pay your employees and to keep the show on the road. So every year, Christmas, and I was there for 17 years, and we built up a really good, strong, solid practice with a lot of referrals. We used to say to each other, well, we're still here every year.
Yeah. And were you on your feet in court? It was when you went into a district or circuit court yourself? Was that something you did?
Yeah, I did a lot of, I would do mainly consent orders now in the circuit court in terms of divorces and judicial separations and those sort of things. We do always use counsel, as you know, ordinarily in the circuit court for adversarial matters, but certainly I used to do off the district court myself as well. I didn't ever appear in the High Court or the Supreme Court myself, although, as we know, solicitors have right of audience just as much as barristers do. And they probably should be doing it a little bit more, I think. I think, there are a lot of solicitors now doing that. There's also a big increase in lay litigants. Sure,
yeah. And was family law, was that a passion of yours?
Yeah, my mother did a bit of practice in family law, and I suppose you're can be a bit naive when you're younger and a little bit idealistic about what you want to achieve in law. And I guess I wanted to change the world and make things better and easier for people, but you have to have in order to be able to do that. So that's how I got involved in family laws, from an empathetic, compassionate perspective. And I always say that the book I wrote on mediation, probate dispute resolution in Ireland, was my gift back to the profession in a way. It's to encourage people to stay out of court. And I do think, and I would always encourage solicitors to train as mediators as well, because I think it's another tool that they have in their toolkit. And solicitors are actually excellent mediators because we know how to be forensic and practical in terms of not giving advice, but in terms of giving information and getting and helping and assisting the parties to reach an outcome.
And when you, I suppose, as your practice developed and grew, when did you get a love for politics, or when did you think that politics was a career for you?
Well, I never did, David. That's the irony of it all. My father was who died. He died 2 weeks before I was elected, actually, in the local elections back in 2014. He was a Fianna Fáil councillor and then an independent, so completely different party to me. And he lost so many elections that and it put me off politics, and I said, I'm never going to be a politician. But what happened was after the crash, the recession that everybody went through, and I just said, this can't happen to the country again. As a self-employed person, you understand how difficult it was, not just personally for us in the firm when, you lose an income overnight, but also our clients. So I decided I have to do something and help. So I decided to canvass with Olivia Mitchell, who was a Fine Gael TD in Dún Laoghaire-Rathdown. Then I joined a branch, then I joined the constituency. And, then the local elections came up and she said, would you be interested in running? And sort of transpired from there, really. And she didn't stand then in the general election in 2016, and I did. And then I was appointed as a minister in November 2017. I could never have predicted that path, nor for it to happen so quickly. But obviously, I do enjoy it very much.
And do you think there were skills in your legal career that you were able to cross over into politics?
They're very easily transferable, and any opportunity I have, I've done interviews before with the Gazette and the Parchment, and I've always maintained that the skill set in particular that solicitors have is really easily transferable. Negotiation, mediation, collaboration, advocacy, just absolutely across the board. And particularly when you're going into the Dáil, or even if you were going into the Seanad, scrutinising legislation, being familiar with that, it's a fantastic asset. And when you think in cabinet, and there are only 15 of us in cabinet, and I'm the first female solicitor ever to be at cabinet. Myself and Charlie Flanagan are the only solicitors at cabinet, and in fact, I think there's only 3 of us in the Dáil out of 160, which is really quite low. So I'd like to see more people involved.
That's actually just an interesting point there on the gender topic, especially in law and in politics. I think recently we've gone over 50% of all qualified solicitors in Ireland are actually female now, and that's something that's been built up over the last few years and very welcomed. What are your thoughts on that? Because it seems from the outside looking in, it seems to be a male-dominated industry, and especially with politics, if you look around the Dáil, it's quite strongly male-populated as well.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I think, and I just heard this anecdotally, that because of Brexit, the register is now slightly shifted back towards the male solicitors. There was a lot of solicitors coming over from the UK into Ireland, but I could be wrong about that. Yeah. In law, certainly there are as many females, if not more, than there are men, more in the solicitor's profession than at the bar. In politics, I mean, there's a huge dearth. I mean, there's only, we're 22% in Dáil, and it's very low. I'm only the 19th female cabinet minister since the foundation of the state. And as I said, the very first female solicitor cabinet, which really shocked me, actually, that I was the first. It's nice to break a glass ceiling, and I hope that I'll inspire other young female solicitors to come along. I mean, if you think about the divorce referendum, which was the genesis of which was from my private members bill that I brought, and 80% of the Irish people supported it. That was purely based on my background in family law for 20 years and trying to reduce the time limit from 4 years to 2. That would never have happened had I not gone into politics. So you can achieve an awful lot if you're single-minded about it and you know how to use your skills, of negotiation and coercion, maybe, to get people on your side.
We're very lucky at the law side of the moment. We have a brilliant female president. She's handling the COVID-19 communications excellent. But is there any solution for that? Is there any recommendations for getting more females into politics or into law? Why do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Michelle's doing a fantastic job. Yeah, and I've heard really good reports from solicitors that she's communicating regularly with them. Fine Gael brought in the gender quota, the 30%. That obviously you have to have 30% now for a general election, otherwise you can lose funding. So I think that's important. But it's the lifestyle of politics itself. It's 24/7, and I think it's just not. It's not just about politics, it's about society in general, I think, David, and people accepting that, it's okay for a mother to be out working full time and to do these jobs. And I think it's also the opprobrium and perhaps the social media abuse and, other difficult, tricky parts. I saw that through the repeal referendum, that females just aren't willing to accept. And that's a real shame, So it's society as well, I think, is a lot to answer for. One of the things I would like to mention is about the referendum and changing the clause in the Constitution about a woman's place in the home. I think that would give a really big signal to Ireland that we have moved on from that archaic type of clause, and I would like to see that removed in the future.
Yeah, you touched on something there that's, this online trolling and negative comments. How does someone deal with that? How, like, when you're in the public eye and things aren't going your way and something happens, how do you personally deal with all that?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I've developed a thick skin over the years. And if I'm 50, I'm not like 2 years of age. So, I know who I am at this point in my life. And as long as I'm principled, and understand the decisions that I've made and they're for the right reasons, then I try not to let it bother me. And most people are very kind and decent in the flesh. It's the cowards really who hide, the keyboard, who are the keyboard warriors really who hide behind.
My view on all that. I think sometimes you have to have empathy for those people.
David?
I think sometimes you have to have empathy for those people who are writing this stuff on the internet, which is very negative and vitriol, because what does it take for someone to be at home to make a nasty comment? You wonder what's going on with that person.
Yeah, no, you would, and obviously they feel disenfranchised and isolated and not listened to, and all of that, and nobody knows the individual situation. But I think there's a sort of sadistic aspect to it as well. And I think as women, they can comment on what we're wearing and suppose what we're saying, all that sort of thing. So it could be particularly difficult. Yeah, but I'm okay about it.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen Michelle Obama brought out a book there last year, and there's a series
on
Netflix, Becoming. So they've done a tour to promote the book, and it's behind the scenes, but she's a very inspiring, fantastic woman. But she talks about abuse and hate that they received while they're in their term in the White House. Yeah,
well, I can imagine that's only on
it's a whole new level.
What I would experience, and that was a fantastic book, actually. Yeah, I mean, she's somebody who would inspire me. I mean, I'm here in my study at the moment, and I have Hillary Clinton's book here, Gutsy Women, in front of me as well on my shelf. So there are some credible women out there who act as role models, and I hope to do that in a minor scale myself.
Just you're the Minister for Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht. What's included in that brief, or where is that at the moment?
Gosh, it's a the scope and the breadth of my department is huge. I mean, culture is all the national culture institutions, the National Gallery, the museums, the theatres, the concert hall. Then, the Arts Council, obviously, like last year we gave 80 million to the Arts Council, and they fund the small organisations. Then on the heritage side is all the national parks. And there's so many different issues, and also the Gaeltacht area as well. And I have a statutory minister, Sean Kine, who's under my department, who's primarily responsibility for that. But it's a vast area, really, really interesting and really fascinating. All the wildlife as well. It's just, I'm actually in the Dáil next Thursday for 2 hours answering questions on COVID-19, the culture side, and then the following week on the heritage side.
Where do you think that will be, access to government buildings and museums with COVID-19? How do you think that's going to affect people attending museums and items of culture?
Yeah, well, we're due to open museums on the 20th of July, museums and galleries, but that's only sort of in a non-stationary way. And even if you look to, some of the shops, for example, opening the 29th of June, they have to have one entrance and an exit. So it would have to be done in that way. The theatres then aren't due to open until the 10th of August. And that's going to be difficult as well, because social distancing is something that we're going to have to live with for a number of months, definitely for the rest of this year anyway. So it has to be accommodated, no more than any employer, including yourself, in terms of getting people back to work. So it's something we're very conscious of. We have a stakeholder group and a senior official group in our department who are obviously looking at all of these things. I've been on conference calls all day in relation to all the various different aspects to it. And, it's a big concern, the loss of revenue, for example, from exhibitions and, even Galway 2020, for example, which is, is the European City of Culture, was due to go ahead this year. And now we're having a much more contracted, scaled down version later of the year. But that's a huge disappointment to people. Although, I have to be fair and say that the majority of people do understand that we're in this situation. And a lot of the artists can avail of the wage subsidy scheme and the pandemic unemployment benefit, which is something. It's not going to be enough, but every sector unfortunately is affected by this at the moment.
Minister, look, thank you so much for your time. I know you're very busy. I won't keep it too much longer. What's the plans for yourself, personally and professionally? Do you think you'll ever return to a career in law?
Are you going to offer me a job, David?
God, I'd love you to work here. Open arms, come on down. Yeah, no problem.
Listen, my grandfather was born outside Macroom, I'll have you know.
Very good.
He was from a place called Carrigafuka.
Oh, yeah.
Tim Callanan, yeah.
Oh,
so that was my mum's father. So I have Cork blood in me.
Very good. And the
I don't know. I just take it day by day,
Yeah, sure. If you were a young person setting out on a career in law at the moment, what advice would you give them?
To believe in themselves, really. To believe in themselves and to kind of follow what they're interested in. Not, people, there was all this, when I was in Blackwell, it was very much about, the big top 5 corporate firms and the commercial side and, all that. And that just never interested me. I was interested in people and their stories and, trying to make things a little bit better for them. So it wasn't about transactional stuff or, necessarily making money. Maybe that was a bad move, but, that's really where I came from. So, even if they feel it's kind of against the grain, I do think it's worthwhile having a niche area rather than trying to be a jack of all trades. You can have a practice that encompasses all areas, but with various different solicitors specialise in those particular areas. I think it's better to get a name for one particular area. That that would be my view on it, and to try and enjoy it too, and not get the stress. I think it'd be very pressurised. I mean, I only look back now of 20 years of a career in family law, and it definitely did affect me. Because you're dealing with people in really difficult, extreme situations, and solicitors were at the coalface, and often clients can project a lot of their difficulties onto us, and so we have to mind ourselves as well, and our own individual and collective well-being as well.
And I suppose I'll ask the same question if there was any young person who wanted to get into politics as a career. What advice would you give them?
Don't do it. No. No, absolutely do it. look, nothing ventured, nothing gained. You know, I mean, you have to be prepared for failure. You have to be prepared for, losing. I was going to say half the population immediately to dislike you just for being a politician. But it is still a really, really noble profession. And at the end of the day, we are the people, like me sitting at cabinet, for the last 2.5 years, we are the people who make the decisions about your life at the end of the day. And if you are somebody who can make a decision and stick by that and do it for the right reasons, then it's the right course of action for you. I do think it's worth having another background as well, like me say with family law, going into it with your eyes open rather than being, youth isn't necessarily, a difficulty, but just having a broader context to what you want to achieve.
Minister, that's great advice. Thank you so much for your time. We sincerely appreciate it, and we wish you all the very best in the future.
Thank you very much, David.
Thank you.
I'll be down to visit you in Cork sometime.
You're most welcome anytime. Thank you very much.